All right, hey everyone, just gonna wait about a minute while others file in. If you're already in the room, you can just drop in the chat where you're from, maybe who you are, whether you're a consultant, an accountant, a digital agency, maybe you're a customer, maybe you're looking at possibly using Katana. Just drop it in the chat. We'd love to see uh, who you all are. And we'll start in about 45 seconds. Hello, Belinda from Connecticut. Matt and Azat say hi.
Hi, Belinda.
Hello, Belinda from Connecticut.
And hi, Thies from the Netherlands. Nice. All right. Welcome, everyone. All right, we're going to get started. Andreas from Minneapolis, thanks for joining us. And to everyone else in the room, really appreciate you joining us. Today, we're going to talk to you about what implementation experts wish you knew first. We're going to talk about what really drives success in an implementation, the prep, the processes, and the people. And you're going to hear straight from two of my friends how to avoid these pitfalls we see all too often. So my name is Jason. I'm a partner manager here at Katana. I want to thank you all for joining me in my first and my last webinar. I work with firms like ABX and Oscorp, as well as accounting and digital agencies, to help manufacturers modernize the way they manage inventory and operations. I get to see firsthand where businesses run into trouble with systems and how the right guidance makes all the difference. So again, I brought two friends with me who are experts in this very field. Azat and Matt, maybe you can start us off.
Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Matt, and I'm from ABX Group. We are an elite partner with Katana, and we work with several other solutions in the space from inventory and manufacturing, but also into e-commerce, CRMs, and shipping software, things like that. We help with implementations and integrations to make sure that you get everything set up with your proper data in your system and everyone's trained properly, but also that all of your systems that need to tie in with one another are seamlessly integrated.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Azat Ospanov. I'm from Oscorp. We're a technological firm based in Montreal, specializing in financial system integration, cloud accounting, technology implementation in Canada and the US. My work focuses on helping organizations scale safely by implementing robust financial controls and streamlining operation through platforms like Katana and QuickBook, to name a few. So a little bit like ABX, we also help on the financial, on the data, but more on the financial side and making sure everything is clean and helping organization get the right data for business decision taking.
Awesome. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to start off with some of the common pitfalls that cause ERP projects to stumble. And then we're going to go into how businesses can best prepare for an implementation. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some Q&A where you can bring your own questions forward. So if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the Q&A section. You should see a Q&A button just in the toolbar below. All right, so when we talk with firms or manufacturers about why they choose or they chose Katana, the conversation usually isn't about the features, it's about the outcomes. They want something that they could grow with them without, any hidden limits. They want their teams working from the same set of numbers, instead of chasing spreadsheets, and they really want to get up and running quickly without a painful implementation curve. So what they've found is that clarity, you have that one source of truth across the sales, production, and finance, which gives them faster decisions and a lot more confidence. And I think that's what really resonates, whether you're an agency, a consultant, or a manufacturer. Tools should free you to focus on growth and not create more hurdles. So now, Matt, I know you've had a lot of experience with Katana. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so a fun fact, I actually used to work with the Katana in the early days and was there for a few years as their head of sales. And ABX Group, actually, there's quite a few of our team members that also came from Katana. So we know the system very well, and that's a lot of the large majority of the work that we do. So we basically help small to medium-sized businesses that are dealing with physical products. We help them do, and at the very onset, maybe maybe they aren't fully aware of their challenges. So we'll help them maybe with a health check in terms of what's working, what's not working, and then start to make a plan in terms of how maybe an improved tech stack can help them out. So we help with a lot of that planning for systems that can not only solve their challenges, but also fit with their existing workflows and perhaps any other existing systems that they want to keep. And basically, we help set them up, integrate it together, so that even though you're using a mix of multiple apps, it might be like, say, Katana and Shopify and HubSpot and QuickBooks Online. So even though it's multiple apps, it feels like kind of one end-to-end system as it's used in the business.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt, for this. So I'm going to highlight also three other pitfalls that we see when we do an implementation, and we need to make sure that we capture them well and document them before going forward. So the three are unclear requirements, messy data, and poorly mapped workflows. So let's look at each other and how they impact the implementation in your accounting system. So first of all, the requirements are not well defined. Too often, what we see is that operational needs are documented without considering financial needs or financial goals in mind. But the thing is, all of these operational processes are directly linked to financial needs. Before the new technology, it was harder to have that in mind because the technology was not allowing this to happen. But with cloud accounting, with new software that came out, it is now possible to do it. And this is where it's important to understand how the operation needs impact the financial need. Because ideally, what we want in implementation technology is that it's a war against clicks. We want to reduce as much as possible data entry. So let's say, for example, we'll look at a simple document or a simple transaction where somebody does an action. Let's say, for example, a reception document. Usually what would happen is that you have a reception at the warehouse, you take the document, you fill it, and then you send it to accounting. So first of all, there is a duplication of the data and also the time that is taking to do this step. With new technology, it allows us to try to connect the accounting system to the reception part. So as soon as the person does the reception, it automatically flows in the behind of the scenes to the accounting system, to other software that the organization might be using. The objective of that is to remove the manual process that we have internally on the accounting system. And each operation also impact the cloud, the accounting and the financial reporting that we have. So let's say, for example, we need to have, where we're doing project-based work, we need to have project profitability. But if we don't train the team to document what was being used for each project, it's going to be hard to get that information afterwards. So as I said, capturing accurate requirements, make sure that your accounting system are connected to your operation, and as much as we can, we try to automate some of the transaction. After that, we're going to talk about data quality. So this is something that is essential in organization. It's important with time, every organization is going to build up data with historical just by being there doing the sales. So we have a list of supplier, we have a list of chart of account, we have a list of SKUs that we have internally. When we do a system change, when we go to a new way of doing things, it's important to go through those data sets and make sure to how to say it, to make sure that we clean them up. So let's say, for example, we have multiple supplier names for the same type of supplier, or for the same supplier, but just they're written differently. This is where initially we're going to go through the data and see what do we want to migrate to the new system and what can we clean up already so we
Nope.
reduce
Looks like
confusion. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I think Jason, you wanted to add something?
Yep, really appreciate it. I think we're just going to, I think you were trying to answer what are the common pitfalls businesses face when implementing an ERP. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. Matt, maybe you can chime in here as well. What's the first red flag you look for that tells you your project could be in trouble?
Yeah, basically it's having giant list that's a combination of the must-haves plus a whole bunch of nice-to-haves and no real prioritization of that list and trying to tackle it all at once. So biting off kind of more than a company may be able to chew, or that they're, because a lot of times with these transitions, it requires a lot of changes in the business. So trying to do everything all at once then causes a lot of challenges when actually implementing these projects. So typically what I try to work with our clients is to consider the priorities or the challenges that need to be tackled first, and then put some things into a bucket of, okay, these are nice to haves. These are some future optimizations. It might not be the most important thing for right now. It's on the list, but let's focus the immediacy on the biggest things that are challenging the business or that's affecting growth and things like that. So really covering, okay, here's our must-haves from our nice-to-haves, and then maybe that list of must-haves might be a pretty long list as well that you might want to break into, instead of one giant project that's going to be across many different departments and so on. Maybe breaking that down into smaller, more manageable pieces. So basically, it's the smaller sprints and project phases. They keep kind of the team focused and aligned around the initiative, versus just having one big project where things can derail and go off track. And then once things go off track, then you start losing momentum internally and you start losing that buy-in internally. And then it stops getting that excitement around this new system, and then just wanting to revert to the old ways of doing things. So, example of this might be the sales team might have certain requirements that might be handled in a CRM, customer relationship management software. The operations team may have requirements that would be handled by an inventory management software or a manufacturing software. The accounting team would have a different set of requirements that an accounting software could handle. So basically, instead of doing all of those all at the same time, kind of making some priorities and making a plan for it. Okay, let's do this part first, and then we're going to lead into the next system. Instead of doing it all at the same time, usually causes a lot of confusion, chaos, and then resulting in failure of the project. So that's one thing, is kind of just getting that list of priorities down and into smaller pieces. Another thing that we see in terms of some of the pitfalls in implementing a system like this is underestimating the amount of work required to clean up their data. So we see this with companies that might have been using an on-premise system or a big bloated spreadsheet that has evolved over 20 or 30 years. So essentially just complex data that made sense for whatever system it was before, but may not make sense in terms of the format for the solutions that you're moving to. So basically, that cleanup, it's a yucky job. No one wants to do it, but it's also not super easy to just offload that 100% either. Like, you might need some involvement from the operations team when it comes to, for say a manufacturing company, the product recipes or bill of materials. You don't necessarily just want to hire an intern and just get them to do all that, because that could lead to inaccuracy of the data. So it's this kind of thing that a lot of companies don't plan for, how much time and effort it takes to actually get their data to the format that their new systems will need it to be. But I'd say that it's also a good thing in terms of it's an opportunity to actually clean up the data and start to think, okay, do we really need 30 years of data into our new system? Maybe a lot of that is obsolete, doesn't matter anymore. And then maybe it's an opportunity then to have a smaller subset of clean data to work with going forward. So again, it's something that a lot of businesses, they don't actually take that planning into consideration, and then it ends up being a bottleneck that then impacts the timing of being able to get started. Because usually among one of the first steps in implementing an ERP or a tech stack is getting the data in there. And if that data isn't quite ready, then that's whenever things are off the rail before it really begins. And aside from that, I'd say also a lot of customers, they don't map out their existing workflows, their data workflows, their integrations whenever they're selecting a system. Um, so what I see a lot of times is that the heads of departments or different department leaders, they may not have been in the buying process. So it might have just been one person doing the research or in terms of buying the software solutions. And then whenever it's time for implementation, then we're involving the wider team. But then the challenge then becomes things pop up that weren't discussed in the buying process and the research phase. And then there could be gaps whenever they're getting all the key stakeholders around together and saying, well, we needed to do this, and then maybe the system can't handle it. And then they got to backtrack and rework it and whatnot, come up with new workarounds or maybe another solution or whatnot. So basically doing a lot of that planning before buying and instead of just starting that on the implementation side would save a lot of the challenges when it comes to the implementation side. And maybe I'll pass it back over to Azat there if he has anything to add on this one.
Thank you, Matt. I think everybody has seen that I was too excited to talk about the subject, so I jumped right in. Sorry for that. I'll continue on my second point. So, as we talked, the first point was the requirements not well defined. So this ties into what Matt said. So it's important to understand exactly what we need out of the operation, what kind of reporting we need to have our business decision taking for management, and kind of KPIs that they need. So understanding as well what is the objective of each process or each documented process that we have. After that, the cleanliness of the data. So a little bit like Matt talked about it. It also goes to the accounting system part of it as well. We need to make sure that we clean up the data. We just go over it because with the time we build up a lot of it, and the same thing for accounting. So with journal entries, with all the sales, are they all useful? Because once we migrate the data to the new system, the analysis won't be as easy or having this much information, and it might affect future reporting, because when we go into the new system, we're going to implement it in a way that what do you need to have as information, and how can we reverse engineer the setup so once everybody does their part in the systems, depending on the apps, that we have the same result in the end. And it's an important step to do the integration as well. So let's say, for example, if we're integrating Katana with QuickBook, the fact that the data is clean, that we have gone through each of the information that is in the system, it will simplify the integration between both of them, and we'll have less risk of errors, and the internal controls will be just better afterwards. Just to touch point a little bit on the workflows that are not well mapped. Mapping workflows isn't just a process exercise, it's a financial one as well. What do I mean by that is that when workflows are clearly identified, defined, it's easier to automate transactions behind them and do the synchronization between the accounting platform and other system. So for example, if you know exactly when inventory moves and how purchase orders are approved, you can trigger accounting events at the right time with the right data and make sure that they flow in between them and that they follow the chronological order. After that, finally, just to conclude on this section, the financial integration side. Before it was less intuitive, but today all the application, the software that we use, they're integrated together. So when we define the workflows, uh, we touch a little bit the integration between the software. We need to make sure that when we look at the workflow, we understand them well, and then we can do an optimal integration. And it will just make it easier for future purposes.
Yeah, so I guess it really shows how not having clear priorities, messy data, it really sets projects up for trouble. And a great reminder: processes are unclear or shaped by outdated systems. The new software just really locks in those inefficiencies. So getting that clarity up front really saves a lot of headaches later. All right. So Zod, building on that, if you could give customers one or two recommendations before they implement a new ERP or tech stack, where should they start?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And this is for me what I consider one of the most important parts of the project. I won't stress it enough, but you'll see me mention the process multiple times during the presentation, and it's because of this importance. So before talking about implementation, the first part is going to be the discovery phase. This is where you document the current process, identify pain points, assess tech readiness, define roles. It may seem basic, but going through that exercise, we'll see a lot of things that we were blindsided of because as the organization grows, as everybody works internally, follows the process, there's always a part of it that is not documented because we cannot predict everything that is going to happen, but we need to reassess the internal discovery, let's say, of the organization, how it works. For implementation, because once we do the system change, it will just make it easier. So first of all, documenting current process. I know that I've been talking about it, but this is what I find very important, and it's a very big factor of the success of a implementation. So first of all, let's start with what's already in place. So before we change anything, we need to understand what is working and what is not working. So documenting the workflows will help uncover inefficiencies and prepares us for system alignment. The better we're prepared, the easier it will the transaction, the more efficient the transition will be. And it's not just about mapping step, it's about understanding the logic behind what everybody does. Because in the end, any organization, depending on the industry that you're working on, it's always a set of repeatable action that create value for the customer. And this is what we need to understand. So what works well, we try to replicate it as much as possible or simplify it. And then is going to bring me to my second point is what are the pain points, what does not work well, and we need to understand why is it not working well, and we have to be very specific about it. This is what is going to help us to, understand the requirements for the new system. So for example, do we know what, just a few questions that we get and we can solve them is, do we know what parts we sold for a specific model number? What's the most sold part for each model of product that we sell? Can we track each location, each line of business separately? These are the kind of questions that help us define what success looks like. So faster order processing, better inventory visibility, fewer manual correction. This is all the question that will touch every organization. And also, just to finish on that point is everybody has a unique vision on what the problems are. So usually what happens is that management or the person that is responsible for technological change will have an idea of a few pain points, the major one that they need to solve. What I would recommend also is going to each team member within the organization and just ask them to list 5 top problems or issues that they see. And if usually they should align, but if they don't align, it's a good indicator of what have we missed and what can we do to align them. Are they touching the same goal? This is something that it's worth a little bit like Matt told earlier. If the team, the more they're implicated, the more they understand what we're trying to do with the system change, the easier the implementation will be. And by asking them what they see as a problem, we're going to solve the first part of the issue, which is implicating the team in the change of the system. After that, so technology is only as effective as the team's comfort level with the new technology. So we need to evaluate digital maturity of the team. Are they ready to change? How they approach change internally within the organization? So any change is a change. Most of the time, in our field, 50% of the hardest part of the work is change management because we need to simplify it. We need to make sure that everybody is on board because you can have the best system, but if we don't use it, the system does not get updated and is not going to be optimal. And it's a double-edged sword as well because I had a situation where we had a client that they had an older system internally that was working very well. The problem is it was not a new system, and the people that were using the system have been using it for multiple years, and the resistance to change was big. But the other downfall of that is that when you have new hires, especially today, we're so used to using technology with our cell phones, with our computers, and asking someone to that is used to using technology to go back to an office and open an old computer to enter information in an older system, it's also tricky to do. So we need to assess both of these aspects of technology change. just before I finish, also the organizational chart. What do I mean by that? So it's ownership of the process or accountability within the new system. We need to understand who will be doing what in the organization. So ideally now, what is everybody doing and where do we want to get to? This is very important because the way the new systems are set up, the way we set up the user, the permission, it's very important to understand what each person does. And the more clear it is, the easier it will be to scale as well in the future. And just a conclusion on the discovery work. Once you go through the process of discovering what you need from the new system, even in the end, this is what is going to answer the major question that we all ask ourselves is it the right system for me? By doing the discovery work, we will know exactly if it's the right system for us. And if it's not the right system for us, then you can take that information, all the work that you've gone through, and look at the other system and make sure that, okay, do you answer the needs? One thing I would avoid is if you have a 1 hour meeting with a supplier and after that hour, they already tell you what you need as a system. This is for me a red flag because for me, sometime in the organization, we need to do a lot of work before understanding if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, just unclear processes, they don't just slow the operations, they really blur that financial picture as well. So getting that clarity up front, helps align both, the workflows that you have as well as the books. So Matt, I'm going to bring it to you now. Once the groundwork is in place, what should be on a company's data checklist before they start implementation?
Yeah, basically, it's like before you just subscribe to a new system and move forward with setting it up, you should be aware of how well your data is actually going to fit into that new system before you've made that commitment. So typically what we would say is ahead of subscribing to a new software is organize your key information that you need the new system or systems to be able to track or handle. So say on the product tracking side of things, do you have SKUs for all of your items? Do you have categories? Do you have it kind of listed out in terms of any product options or configurations for those items? Do you have them categorized in terms of whether it's a material or packaging, or if it's or do you have sub-assemblies and things like that? So basically, and that's just on the product side. And then you can have on the order side, here's what you need to capture from in every customer order. Here's the details. Here's the information we need to capture for each of our customers. And, there could be different things that you need depending on your industry, if you have any sort of compliance reasons that you need to collect information or things like that. So basically, having all of that, knowing what you need to track for each kind of data element, like products, orders, customers, suppliers, things like that, that's going to help you to make sure that you're buying the right solution. So instead of just kind of going into demos of different systems and witnessing the presentation and making a call based off of which presentation you liked, I advise clients to go into these meetings as prepared as possible. Okay, so that, you don't want to run into the trap of getting razzled and dazzled by a nice presentation, but it might actually be the best thing for you and your business at the end of the day. So coming into that meeting prepared with questions. Okay, can you handle the from what Azat was saying around the workflows? Can you handle these kind of workloads? Here's how we do things. Can your system accommodate that? And then from the data perspective, here's the data pieces that here's the data points or the fields that we need to have in order for this all to work for us smoothly. So then basically just a bit more preparation before committing to then implementing, because a lot better to find out that the system can handle some things ahead of the implementation, because one, you may waste money on something that isn't going to be a fit, and then you need to kind of get back out of that contract, and then you've lost momentum with the team again and go back to kind of the exploration phase, which isn't fun. Or even if your company is adaptable and flexible to changing their processes to fit or to conform to how the system works, well, you may need more time for change management and to, change those processes ahead of that. So it's going to bite you one way or another of not being prepared with this stuff ahead of the implementation. So the more prepared that you are for your data, your workflows, as Azat was saying, as well as your integrations of saying, okay, here's the systems I use, and here's how I use them. And if I'm to add your tool into the mix, then this is how I would want it to flow. Does that integration work that way? Because not all integrations are built equally, and there's different ways to integrate different systems together. So understanding kind of how you want it to work will then help to make sure that there's no surprises downstream.
And wouldn't you know it, every time I do one of these things, something is bound to happen. And I lost my internet connection, so I apologize there for unsharing my screen. I think I've shared my screen back. If so, Matt, can you just give me a thumbs up?
Yeah, it's looking good. Actually, I do have one more quick point here. Another thing prior to going straight into an implementation. So let's say you have an old system that the team is used to working with, and then you're getting ready to get started with the new system or systems. Often, if it's a company that has been doing the same thing for a long time, or maybe the team isn't super receptive to changes or new technology or things like that, if you know it's going to be a bit of a struggle perhaps, then I often will suggest to start with like a tech stack prototype or like a proof of concept of the setup first. So before you cancel everything that you used to do and just make the entire switch over to the new systems, just trying this out in kind of a low risk scenario where if you run into issues, if you run into roadblocks or that you need to work around or think through, well, then you still have kind of, working side by side with your current tech stack before getting to the point of, okay, and then now once you have the prototype or the proof of concept that worked out the kinks, we're getting buy-in from the team. Okay, now we have some more comfort. Now it's time to cancel the old subscriptions and move towards the new tech stack there.
Absolutely. So a simple checklist, sandbox account really can save you months in pain. All right. So, Matt, once the prep work is done, then, the next big question is about the system itself. Can you walk us through the benefits of choosing a modern cloud native ERP versus going with a multi-app approach? Maybe let us know how the costs compare. Maybe you can dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll keep it pretty high level because there's so many different options out there. But I'll just take some kind of general things around bigger ERPs, that's an all-in-one system versus the multi-app tech stack approach. So whenever I'm speaking with companies, like I see it all the time, where companies say that they want one system. Because in theory, one system, one tool, instead of multiple tools, that should be easier, should be faster, should be less expensive than getting set up with multiple tools, right? Well, not exactly. So with ERPs, a lot of the time it's typical for it to be a six-figure investment in the first year of subscribing to it. And a lot of the times the ERP systems, they need a consulting team to then heavily customize or configure the account to their needs. So even though it's one system, there's a whole lot of customizations that may need to be involved there to make it work for your business. Whereas, the best in class apps out there, you may be able to pop those off actually faster than kind of one system tailoring it for the business end to end. So did some rough research in terms of if you look at a typical cloud app stack in kind of like the Katana ecosystem, the range of costs could be say 5K to 50K, but it all depends on kind of the tool sets you're using. If you have, like an expensive CRM in there that can, take it closer to the 50K a year versus if you have kind of lightweight tools could be on the low end as 5K. Whereas with the all-in-one ERP systems, typically seeing that as more of like 10K as the very bottom tier. However, be careful because usually there's an asterisk next to that because then there's lots of extra kind of hidden costs that come out whenever you are actually going to customize the system. With the cloud-based ERPs, typically see that cost go from 10K on the low end with an asterisk, say, to 150K in average. And that's a mix of the system and the support of getting it set up. Um, Also was doing some research on X, and I saw that there's a post that ERP projects typically run 3 times over the budget or over its proposed budget, and also takes 30% longer than the proposed timeline. And at the end of it, less than 40% of them are actually seeing any sort of value out of the system. After this big, expensive, time-consuming setup, they're not necessarily getting the efficiencies in a lot of the cases that they were hoping for. But one thing that I'll say with the modern multi-app stack approach is that it's a lot more flexible. With an all-in-one ERP, you're kind of locked in, right? It's got all of the different departments using it. So if one department's not happy, it's kind of like too bad because the rest of the company needs this. Whereas with a multi-app tech stack approach, that's where, okay, you can have a different system for sales. Sales can say, I want HubSpot, or I want Salesforce, or I want Pipedrive, or whatever it is, and finance can choose their system, operations can choose their system, and all that sort of stuff. And basically, with the multi-app tech stack, you can sub out a system as long as it's able to integrate with the other ones in the app with your tech stack there. So all-in-one ERP, you're kind of like stuck with it a lot of the times. Dealing with multiple apps, a lot more flexible to swap out, swap in, as maybe the needs of different departments change over time. You don't need to overall change your overall tech stack, but just a swap out when needed. And also, like, typically whenever you're picking those different apps, they're better tools than the module that you'll have within the ERP for that department. So you'll typically see a stronger CRM choosing HubSpot or Salesforce than what's in a lot of the ERPs for the CRM module. And again, with the apps, they're all kind of built to integrate with other tools, whereas ERPs more meaning to be standalone. And these apps are always like with the SaaS approach, like software as a service, a lot of them they're updating features all the time. Whereas if it's your ERP, typically a lot slower to release new features, and you're paying consultants, developers to update that. So maybe I'll hand it back over there, Jason.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I mean, you have the same stat that I was going to pull later on, I guess, but obviously, money is going to be a drain, and not to mention time and resources. It's just a project that a lot of SMBs just can't really take on without real risks. So, Azat, maybe you can tell us, once a company picks the right stack, how does that make audits and due diligence simpler?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's one of the things we need to be careful when doing an implementation or changing system. Sometimes, especially because the system allow for a lot of complexity, allow a lot of functionalities, we tend to go chase those functionality, chase those data. But the thing is, we need to be careful. We need to remember that simplicity isn't just a design choice; it's a strategic advantage. What do I mean by that? Is that whether you're preparing for audit, scaling operation, onboarding new staff, streamlining process to make everything easier. Simplicity will be something that will help a lot for the future, and it will affect every part of the organization on the accounting, onboarding, everywhere. So first of all, simplifying for audits, reviews, and due diligence. What do I mean by that? The simpler the system, the simpler it is to explain to someone external that comes in. So if the auditor, we provide them with a clear workflow, with a clear documentation of how the information flows, what kind of controls we have internally, what system we use. And we're prepared for that. That's what we usually do once we do an implementation. We're going to train the auditor and just to show him what was done. The easier it is for them to understand, the less costly it is for the organization, and the simpler the work is done for the external partners. So it will be easier for them to do. And the same thing for due diligence. I know that we're not always aiming to selling the business from the start at a certain point, but the thing is, the more we prepare it in the mind of I'm going to sell next year, because you want to be able to explain it to someone else that comes in. The turnkey concept, basically. Okay, you buy the business, here's the access to log into the different tabs, and everything is in there. Instead of coming in and trying to figure out what happened internally, how things work. After that, standardization for scalability. So with simplicity in mind, that's what allows scalability for the business, because the when your teams in different locations follow the same playbook, follow the same onboarding process for new staff, it's easier to expand the market. It's easier to deploy the business in different locations to have a bigger growth. And also the other thing is that, let's say you have one location that does not have enough people, enough staff to take care of the operation. You can ask someone from another location to go in there. And because we follow the same process, we're not losing operational efficiency or the momentum. So we need to standardize. It's going to help a lot, and it will make it less. You'll have less anxiety about the business as well for everybody. After that, ease of implementation for staff. So the way we design the system when we do the implementation is that we try to make it more intuitive for the staff and for management as well. We don't want the staff to log into multiple apps, enter a lot of information. We try to reduce the risk of error. We try to understand, okay, what is the most important data? How can we simplify it so everybody is only exposed to one or two applications within the ecosystem? Let's say, for example, we are going to see, let's say, sometimes we have clients that will have 10 apps, but that's only what we see. Each team member, they're going to most of the time touch one or two applications during their whole work. And finally, just the app fatigue side. So that's to touch point on that as well, is that's why we try to simplify the apps for everybody in the organization. Even if there's a lot of them available, sometimes we're going to have a situation where that would be ideal if we can have this app. I agree with that, but we start with simplicity. If it's not crucial for business decision taking, if it's not crucial for operation, we can push it off. And that's the nice thing with cloud application, is that we're going to have the core of the apps set up a little bit like the foundation of the pyramid. And then after that, each other need that we'll have, we can change it afterwards. So let's say, for example, we have an accounting system with an inventory software that is connected to them, but then the business grows. It reaches a certain level where you need to change it. Then you can switch, for example, to Katana. So let's say you were on a different system and then the business grows, you need to have more capabilities. You can switch to Katana, and then we can connect Katana to QuickBook instead of changing the whole system compared to an ERP, for example.
Great points. The KISS method. I like the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. So yeah. All right. Let's go to the next slide here. That being said, so like Matt, how do you guys turn a multi-app stack into something that feels, seamless to the customer?
Well, just as I was saying with the app fatigue, that would be typically the downside of the multi-app approach here. So it's like, okay, got multiple apps here. How can this be a bit more simplified? And that's where, say, ABX, we're good with the manufacturing, the inventory side of things. We're not accountants, so that's where we like to rather collaborate instead. So that's where we partner on projects together with Oscorp, because they handle the financial consulting and management side of things. So basically, put kind of those skill sets together, having one proposal, one contact for managing the project, rather than kind of with a lot of the multi-app tech stack implementations. Normally they fall down because the company tries to do all this themselves. They try to kind of maintain like their relationship with all the different app vendors. So that's where ABX, Oscorp can help here, is to then basically have one proposal as if it were an ERP system for their software systems of choice, as well as getting them set up and trained and whatnot, so that it's kind of one contact, one group that they're working with on that. So that then reduces that app fatigue, dealing with different contacts for each different thing. So we help to then get it established, get it set up, but then also we help to support it ongoing. So that as things change in their business, or if there's an issue that pops up, we can help them with their tech stack to identify what they need to do. So sometimes it might be a new initiative that might be affecting a few of the different apps, and we can help with all that planning and ongoing support for continuous improvements. yeah, basically what I'll say though is that even though maybe multiple apps for an organization, still may just be one or two apps per department or per person. So it's still not, we're not having it set up so that each person needs to log into, 20 different applications or anything like that. Trying to have it just the crucial access for the team members. And if they need that back end support, it's one group or one contact that they can go to.
Awesome. All right, so now we have some time for some questions. I'm just going to go look in the chat here. I see that Mason wrote a question. I don't know whether one of you can chime in or if you have experience with this. What if I compare it to a low no-code ERP like Zoho One? Matt, Azat, do you have any experience with Zoho One? I've heard it once in a while, but it doesn't usually come up when we ask where you're coming from or who you're looking at. Do you
Uh,
guys have experience?
Definitely, I can answer a little bit from my experience. So definitely, Zoho one is a great suite of application. They do meet the needs when depending on the client. But the thing to take into account is that Zoho is not a competitor of, let's say, Katana, QuickBook, and the ecosystem that we develop. It's just a different stage of the life of the organization. So usually, where we see Zoho is more of a smaller organization, or depending on your needs. So let's say, for example, on accounting side, Zoho does offer accounting functionalities, but they're not very pushed. So let's say, for example, you're selling in multiple provinces, or let's say you're selling in one province. Zoho will be able to take the work. There's not a lot of transaction. It will be able to do it. But at the moment you add complexity layers on different parts or of the ecosystem, that's when you're going to outgrow Zoho. But if you were asking me, I wouldn't say switch from Zoho to QuickBook or to Katana right away. I would say you'll feel it at a certain point where you feel that it's heavy to use. It's a little bit slow. It's a little bit the information is not as accurate or as flexible as you would like to have it. So that's when you're going to know. The moment you start looking at the system from different eye and asking more of it, that's when you usually switch. And the same thing for what we do implement. Let's say, for example, with the ERPs, where we compete with ERP is that clients that go on ERPs that don't necessarily need it. But at a certain point, you're going to reach where you need to go on ERP because this is what will be the best solution for the size of the organization. But they're not competitive. They just fit in different life stages of the organization. Hope
Thanks,
that answers.
Azat. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think that answers it. Zoho, like you said, maybe at a certain point you're going to start feeling that strain, and that's when you probably want to start looking at another app, whether it's Katana or a different solution. I got another question here. How do you avoid creating silos when you're running multiple apps instead of one ERP? Matt, maybe I'll turn this one to you this time. How would you do that?
Well, basically, it's kind of comes down to what we talked about at the beginning. It's kind of that planning from the very get-go. So where silos usually start to form is whenever they're not thinking about the whole organization. Using these tools together. It's this department's using this tool and they're not integrating with any of the other tools that other departments are using, or they don't really have a good integration plan of how this tool is going to speak to the other tool. So then basically silos start forming up from there. And then when there's silos, then there's bottlenecks in information. Okay, the finance team's waiting for information from, the operations team or whoever's managing inventory or orders or whatnot. So it really comes down to not thinking of these as just separate systems, but thinking of it as a tech stack that would work together. So it's planning out, again, the workflows. So maybe it starts out that they're taking a customer order, and that's going to be in this system, and then the next step downstream from that is to do maybe it's manufacturing an order if it's a custom made to order, or maybe it is just picking and packing orders, but making sure that the information of where that sales order was collected then passes on to the next step in the business, and that then whenever that person or that role is doing their thing, that the information from that passes along to the next one. So again, how to avoid having silos is really thinking about all of the data from the business and how you use different apps or systems to capture that, rather than just geeking out, looking at apps, getting apps, and not really thinking about how it fits into the organization as a whole.
Great. All right, so we have time for one more question. Um, how do you recommend companies balance their day-to-day operations while dedicating enough internal resources to make sure that there's a successful implementation? We hear it quite often, not having, one of the things that we hear often is not having a champion assigned to that project. Are there any other, recommendations you can make, Matt and Azat, on this particular question?
Yeah, I can start with this one. Definitely. So that's where the in the discovery phase, the planning of it will be very important. There's multiple factors to take into account, and each organization will have a different set of realities. So let's say, for example, the year end. We don't want to do a system change when we have the highest peak season of our operation. The vacation time. Do we have a lot of people on vacation? So let's say in the summer, let's say July. Usually that's where the system implementation will be slower because we need to have key people in the organization not on vacation. Because I remember we had a case where all the important people in the project, each of them was in vacation at one point, so we decided to delay it because especially for something that we implement for ideally for the next 10 to 20 years, we're looking at it on the long-term scale. I prefer to have the project delayed 1 month or two because I know that we're going to implement it well. So planning comes very important in the beginning, and need to make sure which phase are we going to roll out, how are we going to roll out, and getting team members on board. Once we have the plan, we can ask them, okay, is that something that is feasible? Can you put time aside for that, or would you suggest something else? So making sure that everybody is implicated in the plan, that will make it way easier. And if we plan it ahead and have deployment phases for each part of it, usually, let's say on the accounting side, I would, the term of the rule, choose a period where it's in mid-year, so not after the year end and not before, just before the year end, so mid-year, and also making sure that it's the lowest point of our operation. So let's say, for example, if we sell Christmas gifts during the Christmas, we won't do that in January. Ideally, we would do that in February or in March, where it's this lowest season that we have. So we need to allocate resources. We need to make sure that we plan a little bit on that.
Great. Okay. So I have one more question I want to get to just because I think it kind of touches upon Mason's question as well. So, like, if you have a business that's growing, you have needs that obviously is going to continue to evolve as you start scaling. How can you guys help, customers stay on top of, using the best technology? Matt, I'll take
Well,
this one. You want to take this one first, or is that? It's up to you.
Although I'm in technology and software and all that, I'm still a bit old school, and I basically say it comes down to the fundamentals. And there's so many people that they see a shiny new object, right? Ooh, this is a new AI-powered software. This looks cool, without actually having a business problem that they're trying to, actually solve. So it's kind of like a solution looking for a problem in a lot of cases. So basically, I just try to say, okay, what are your business goals, and what are the challenges that's maybe hindering them from attaining their business goals, or if they're looking to scale, okay, what do we need to do to help facilitate that growth? So basically, I just kind of I try not to just geek out and say, okay, here, there's new technology and new technology. It's around checking in on the business and how the business is doing and leveraging technology to help the business in areas where it makes sense.
Great. Zot, you want to touch up on that as well? We have maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And, we'll
Definitely. So one of our phases in the discovery phase is we're going to ask the clients and look at the organization and see what are the next steps for the organization. What are the goals? Where do we want to get to? And we plan them ahead because sometimes there's some function that we don't necessarily have at the moment, but we're going to need them for the future growth of the business. But if we can incorporate that, and if we can understand that this is something that is going to come, we can always already plan for it, we can implement it without using it right away. So let's say, for example, we know that as the organization grows, the accountant are going to ask for an audit. We need to have internal controls in place. Then what we can do is already implement the approval process internally and just start to use it very informally, very basically in a simple steps. But we're going to build when we build the system, we're going to leave place for the future in 1 year or two to include the approval process system and connect it to the different apps that we have internally. So this is something that we can plan ahead, and it's important to us because if you come, let's say, see us, and QuickBook is the right fit for you, but in 2 years you're going on the stock market and you're going to have 25 locations, then we might need to consider, is this something that will, because I don't want to implement something that will not necessarily be helpful for you and that you need to go through the change again. Maybe one last example. I remember we had a situation where a client came to see us. It was a business that was running for a while, very well organized. They were using legacy software, but they were very well used. All the information was there. We will look at the requirements, we'll look at the change that needs to be done, but we realized that the owner was going to sell the business in 2 years. In that case, I told them, let it run as it is, because you already have the information. I don't want you to go through all the whole process. And the new management that will come in will be able to do that change and will be able to help them to do it, because otherwise we relearn all the curve. So understanding the future needs, where we need to go, will definitely make sure that we implement the right system at the right way.
Well, folks, we are coming up to our hour. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy day and joining Matt, Azat, myself. There was a lot of information here in this meeting. Hopefully you've come away with something. If you would like to learn a little bit more about Oscorp, about ABX, about Katana, there's some codes there that you can scan. Find us on LinkedIn. Would love to have a chat. Add me, add Matt, at Azat. And thank you all again for joining us. Hope you guys have a lovely day and the rest of the week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.